The night my mother let me die, she didn't even look me in the eyes. I still remember the smell of disinfectant in that hospital room, the sound of machines beeping beside me, the cold sweat running down my neck while doctors rushed around trying to stop the bleeding. And through the blurry haze of pain, I saw my family standing near the door, not crying, not panicking, arguing. "She's exaggerating," my older brother Daniel whispered. My father folded his arms. I told her this would happen if she kept acting dramatic all the time. Then my mother said the sentence that changed everything. "Your sister's engagement dinner starts in 2 hours. We can't stay here all night." I stared at them from the hospital bed, barely able to breathe. I had just survived a car accident. A truck had slammed into my car on the highway during a storm. The doctors said if the ambulance had arrived 3 minutes later, I would have died on the road, and somehow, my family was annoyed. Not scared. Not grateful. Annoyed. The nurse looked horrified when my parents started leaving. "Someone should stay with him," she said carefully. My mother sighed loudly like this entire thing was inconvenient. "He'll survive." Then they walked out, every single one of them, my mother, my father, my brother. Even my little sister Emily, who couldn't stop staring at her phone while I begged her not to leave. None of them knew those were the last moments they would ever have power over me, because 48 hours later, their entire lives collapsed, and it started with a phone call they never expected. But before I tell you what happened, you need to understand something. Families don't destroy themselves overnight. They rot slowly, quietly, like termites inside walls. From the outside, my family looked perfect. We lived in a huge suburban house with white fences and expensive cars parked outside. My father owned a construction company worth millions. My mother hosted charity events and acted like a saint in public. Everyone thought we were successful, happy, untouchable, but inside that house, I was invisible. I was the unwanted son. Daniel was the golden child because he followed my father into business. Emily was the princess because my mother adored her beauty and popularity. And me? I was the disappointment, the quiet one, the sensitive one. Nothing I did was ever enough. When I got straight A's, my father asked why I wasn't first in the entire state. When I won a writing competition, my brother laughed and called it useless. When I got accepted into a great university, my mother cried harder over Emily failing her driving test the same day. It sounds unbelievable. But after years of being treated like garbage, you stop fighting for love. You start surviving. And survival changes you. By 27, I worked as a financial analyst in my father's company. Not because he respected me, because he trusted me to clean up his messes. I knew every hidden account, every illegal payment, every bribe disguised as consulting fees. My father always underestimated me because I stayed quiet. That was his biggest mistake. The accident happened on a Thursday night. I was driving home after reviewing some documents that didn't make sense. Numbers were disappearing, millions. And the deeper I looked, the uglier things became. At first, I thought someone inside the company was stealing. Then I realized the truth. The company itself was built on fraud. My father had been laundering money for years through fake construction contracts. Daniel knew. My mother knew. Even Emily benefited from it. I remember gripping the steering wheel while rain hammered the windshield. I felt sick. My own family wasn't just cruel. They were criminals. Then headlights exploded through the darkness. A truck swerved across the road. The crash sounded like a bomb. Glass shattered into my face. Metal crushed around my legs. Pain ripped through my chest. And then darkness. When I woke up in the hospital, I expected fear from my family. Instead, they looked irritated that I survived. But the strangest part came after they left. Around midnight, a nurse walked into my room holding my phone. "You've been getting calls non-stop," she said. I could barely move. "Who is it?" She checked the screen. "Someone named Victor Hale." My stomach tightened. Victor Hale was not just anybody. He was the federal investigator secretly building a case against my father's company, and he had been contacting me for weeks. Because I was the only person inside the company willing to talk. The nurse handed me the phone. My hands trembled as I answered. Victor didn't waste time. Someone tried to erase the company's servers tonight. I froze. What? We traced remote access from your father's office. They're destroying financial evidence. A cold chill spread through my body. My accident suddenly didn't feel random anymore. Victor's voice became serious. Listen carefully. We believe your crash may not have been accidental. I stopped breathing. What are you saying? The truck driver disappeared. The vehicle was stolen, and someone paid him 2 hours before the collision. My heart started pounding so hard the monitor beside me beeped wildly. No. There's more, Victor said. Your family thinks you copied financial records before the crash. Because I had. I kept backups, thousands of files, every illegal transaction, every offshore account, every fake contract. I originally saved them because I was scared the company would collapse one day. Now those files became something else. A weapon. Victor lowered his voice. If they believe you still have those records, you're in danger. I stared at the empty doorway where my family had walked out hours earlier. Suddenly everything made sense. The coldness, the lack of concern, the way Daniel avoided eye contact. They weren't upset because I got hurt. They were terrified because I survived. That realization broke something inside me. You know what hurts most? Not betrayal, expectation. Part of me still believed my mother loved me deep down. Part of me still thought my father would choose his son over money. I was wrong. Completely wrong. The next morning, my mother finally came back to the hospital, not alone. With a lawyer, she walked into my room wearing sunglasses and expensive perfume, like she was attending brunch instead of visiting her injured son. The lawyer smiled politely. We just need a quick signature. I looked at the papers, power of attorney. They wanted legal control over my finances and property while I was hospitalized. My mother crossed her arms. It's just temporary. I stared at her in disbelief. I almost died. And we're trying to help you. Help me, the same woman who left me bleeding in a hospital bed. I looked at the lawyer. Get out. His smile faded. My mother's face hardened instantly. That fake sweetness vanished so fast it scared me. You ungrateful little bastard, she hissed quietly. Do you know how much stress you've caused this family? I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, because I finally understood who she really was. She didn't love me. She loved control. And she was losing it. She leaned closer to my bed. Where are the files? There it was. The truth, no pretending anymore, I whispered. You mean the evidence? Her face turned pale. For 1 second, I saw genuine fear in her eyes. Then she stood up immediately. We're leaving. As they walked out, she turned back toward me. You have no idea what you're doing. No, she had no idea what I was about to do. The moment they left, I called Victor. I'm ready. 48 hours later, federal agents stormed my father's company headquarters at 6:13 in the morning. Employees screamed as investigators flooded the building, carrying boxes and warrants. My father was dragged out of his office in handcuffs while cameras flashed outside. Daniel tried running through the parking garage. They arrested him before he reached his car. News channels exploded within hours. Multi-million-dollar fraud investigation. Construction empire under federal raid. Family business accused of money laundering. The beautiful image my family spent decades building collapsed in one morning. But karma wasn't finished yet. Because hidden inside those files was something even worse. My father had stolen pension funds from retired workers. Old men who spent 40 years breaking their backs at construction sites lost their savings while my family bought luxury cars and diamond watches. The public turned vicious overnight. Neighbors avoided them. Friends disappeared. Investors sued them. Every fake relationship they built with money evaporated instantly. And for the first time in my life, AB watched my family feel powerless. 3 days later, my mother came to the hospital alone. She looked different. Smaller somehow. Her makeup couldn't hide the panic in her face anymore. When she entered my room, she closed the door carefully. Then she cried. Real tears. "I'm your mother," she whispered. "Please help us." I looked at her silently. She grabbed my hand desperately. "Your father could go to prison for the rest of his life." I slowly pulled my hand away. "You left me here to die." Her breathing shook. "We were scared." "No," I said quietly. "You were selfish." She broke down completely then. "I did love you." Those words hurt more than anything else. Because for years, that's all I wanted to hear. But some words come too late. I looked out the hospital window while rain rolled down the glass. "You only came back because you need something." She had no answer. Because we both knew it was true. Before leaving, she turned toward me one last time. "Families forgive each other." I finally looked her directly in the eyes. "Families don't try to kill each other." She left without another word. I never saw her again. Months passed. The trials became national news. My father blamed Daniel. Daniel blamed my father. Emily sold interviews online pretending she was a victim. The entire family devoured itself trying to survive. And the craziest part? The accident investigation eventually uncovered the truth. The truck driver confessed everything. My father ordered someone to scare me. Not kill me, just scare me enough to hand over the files. But the driver lost control during the storm, meaning my own father almost got me killed over money. When I heard that, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt empty, because deep down, I think I already knew. A year later, I visited the cemetery after my grandmother's funeral. She was the only person in my family who ever treated me with kindness. After the service ended, I noticed someone sitting alone near the trees. My father, older, thinner, broken. Prison had destroyed him. When he saw me, he stood slowly. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then he asked the question I never expected. Was it worth it? I looked at him carefully. The powerful man who once controlled everything now looked terrified of silence. "You mean exposing the truth? You destroyed this family." I stared at him in disbelief. Even now, even after everything, nothing was ever his fault. I stepped closer. "No," I said quietly, "you destroyed it long before I did." His eyes watered slightly. "You could have saved us." And there it was, the final manipulation, the guilt, the blame, the same poison he used my entire life, but this time it didn't work. Because broken children eventually grow into adults who stop begging for love. I smiled sadly. "You left your son alone in a hospital because protecting money mattered more than his life." He looked away. "That's the moment you lost everything." Then I walked away. And for the first time in my entire life, AB didn't look back. I didn't look back. But I heard him call my name, not the cold, distant version he used during business meetings, not the angry voice that echoed through my childhood. For the first time in my life, he sounded like a father. "Please." My steps slowed for half a second. That single word hit harder than I expected, because no matter how badly someone hurts you, a small part of your heart still remembers who you wish they could been. I closed my eyes. And suddenly I was 10 years old again, standing in the rain outside my school while every other kid got picked up by their parents. I remember watching car after car leave the parking lot until the street became empty. Then my father finally arrived 2 hours late. Not apologizing, not worried, just irritated. "You're old enough to wait," he snapped. That was the first day I learned something dangerous. If people can ignore your pain long enough, Eventually, you start ignoring it too. I opened my eyes and kept walking. Behind me, my father's voice cracked. You were supposed to protect this family. I stopped beside the cemetery gate, then I turned slightly. No, I said calmly. I was supposed to survive it. The wind moved through the trees between us. Cold, silent, final, then I left. That should have been the end of the story, but life doesn't end after revenge. That's the part nobody talks about. After the anger fades, after the headlines disappear, after the people who hurt you finally fall, you're still left alone with yourself, and loneliness can feel strange when chaos was all you ever knew. 2 months later, I moved into a small apartment near the coast. Nothing luxurious, just quiet, no screaming, no manipulation, no pretending. For the first few weeks, I barely slept. Every sound made me tense. Every unknown number made my chest tighten. Trauma doesn't disappear because justice happens. Sometimes revenge only silences the noise around you, not inside you. One night, around midnight, someone knocked on my door, 3 slow knocks. My entire body froze instantly. I checked the peephole. Emily, my little sister, stood outside wearing a gray hoodie with tears running down her face. For a moment, I almost didn't open the door, but some wounds still carry memories of love. I unlocked it carefully. She looked terrible, dark circles under her eyes, mascara smeared across her cheeks. Nothing like the confident, spoiled girl who used to mock me at family dinners. "Can I come in?" she whispered. I stayed silent for a few seconds before stepping aside. She entered slowly, looking around my apartment like she couldn't believe this was how I lived now. No marble floors, no giant chandeliers, no servants, just peace, and somehow that seemed to make her emotional. She sat on the couch while rubbing her hands nervously. I didn't know where else to go. I leaned against the wall quietly. "Why are you here?" At first, she didn't answer, then her face crumbled. "Dad tried to kill himself last week." The room went silent. I felt something cold move through my chest. Not satisfaction, not grief. Something emptier than both. Emily wiped her eyes quickly. "He survived, but," her voice shook, "he's not okay." I looked away toward the window. Rain tapped softly against the glass. Funny how storms always seem to follow our family. "He keeps talking about you," she whispered. I laughed quietly under my breath. "Now he remembers he has a son. That's not fair." I looked at her sharply. "Not fair?" She flinched immediately. "You all abandoned me in a hospital bed." "I know. You watched them destroy me for years." "I know." You said nothing. Her eyes filled with tears again. I was scared of them. That sentence hit me harder than I expected. Because suddenly I remembered all the times Emily stayed silent at dinner while our father humiliated me, the times she looked away, the times she followed our mother instead of defending me. Back then, I thought she was cruel. Now I realize something else. She was weak. There's a difference. And weak people often become part of terrible things simply because they're afraid. She looked down at her trembling hands. "Mom lost the house." I said nothing. "She blames everyone except herself." Still nothing. "Daniel took a deal with prosecutors. He testified against Dad." That one surprised me. My brother always worshipped power. Of course he betrayed the moment survival mattered more. Emily looked up at me carefully. "You were right about all of them." I stared at her for a long moment, then quietly asked, "Why didn't you ever choose me?" The second those words left my mouth, her face broke completely. Because beneath all the anger and betrayal, that was the real wound. Not the money, not the fraud, not even the attempted murder. It was knowing nobody chose me when it mattered. Emily started crying harder than before. "I wanted to," she whispered. I didn't know how." I nodded slowly because that answer sounded painfully honest, and honesty hurts more than lies sometimes. She stayed for an hour. We talked about things we never discussed growing up: the screaming fights, the pressure, the fear of disappointing our father, the way our mother controlled everyone emotionally. For the first time ever, we sounded like siblings instead of strangers sharing a last name. When she finally stood to leave, she hesitated near the door. "Do you hate me?" I looked at her tired eyes, and I realized something important. Hatred is exhausting. Eventually, you get tired of carrying it. "I don't know," I answered honestly. She nodded like she expected that. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out a small box. "My grandmother wanted you to have this before she died." After she left, I opened it slowly. Inside was an old silver watch, my grandfather's watch. The one my father always wanted but never received. There was also a folded note written in shaky handwriting. It said, "Some people inherit money, some inherit pain. But the strongest people inherit wisdom from suffering. Do not become the people who hurt you." I sat there for a long time staring at those words. Then something inside me finally cracked. Not from anger. From grief, real grief, for the childhood I never had, for the family I kept trying to earn, for the version of my parents that never truly existed, and for the boy inside me who spent years believing love had to be deserved. I cried harder that night than I did after the accident. Because revenge can destroy your enemies, but only truth can heal you. The next morning, my phone rang at exactly 8:17 a.m. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, then I answered. "Hello?" A weak voice responded. "Son." My entire body went numb. "My father." For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then he started crying, not loud, not dramatic, just broken, and somehow that was worse. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness," he whispered. I stared out at the ocean beyond my balcony, gray waves crashing endlessly against rocks. "You're right." His breathing became uneven. "I ruined everything." Part of me wanted to hang up. Part of me wanted to scream, but another part, a smaller part, just felt tired. "You know what the worst part is?" I asked quietly. "What?" "I spent my whole life trying to make you proud." Silence. Then I heard him sob softly on the phone, and suddenly I realized something terrifying. This man was no longer powerful, no longer feared, no longer important. He was just a broken old man sitting alone with the consequences of his choices. Karma had already done its job. I closed my eyes. "You should loved me when you had the chance." Then I ended the call. And this time, he didn't call back.